right, everybody, we're going to do this thing again. Oh, I'm Austin Hicks. Welcome
They don't know that we already did this once.
I know, right? March Madness is streaming not just past what's going on in the court. It's going on in the studio as well. So we're just going to recap what we were just talking about. Our producer, Alex, is really happy because High Point just just completed this started their Cinderella story, winning tonight. That was just amazing. Kind of talk to me a little bit about your thoughts whenever you saw this game.
Well, the thing that I love the most just in the world when it comes to sports is sitting down in front of 4 basketball games that are all happening at once in the NCAA tournament. It only happens like this time of year. I'm sure you can find 4 other games that happen in the regular season at the same time. They don't matter. These games matter. So I'm sitting there watching Ohio State and TCU, and Ohio State's down 15, and then they come back with a 15-1 run, and they take the lead, and then TCU takes the lead back, and that one goes down. I picked Ohio State. TCU wins. Fair play to them. And then, I've got other games on. I'm watching Duke. We're watching Duke on WDBJ7, and I'm going, they're down by 11. What is happening right now? And this is the thing that the first day of the tournament brings, is you kind of know what's going to happen, but you also know you have no idea what's going to happen. And I know those two things sound mutually exclusive, but if you watch the tournament and if you're a big fan, then you understand what I'm talking about.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. This is like my favorite time of the year because I'm over here making the sportscast, and I just happen to look at the scores, and then I see Duke down 11. I was like, first I was happy because, as most people are, you either love Duke or you hate Duke, and I'm on the hate Duke side. So I was like, wow.
Most of us are.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to tear up my bracket because this is not something I saw at all because this is probably one of the better Duke teams I've seen personally.
They're the number 1 overall seed, and you and I both picked them to win the national championship. We have them beating Michigan, both of us in our bracket, and yet we're watching them. They're down by 11. And I was saying earlier, Virginia, when they were the number 1 seed, they lost to UMBC, Maryland-Baltimore County. It was because Maryland-Baltimore County shot like 70% from 3. So I went to the team stats for this Duke game, assuming that Siena had shot 70% from 3, and no. They shot 38% from 3. You want to shoot at least 33%, so that's barely above, desirable. Duke shot 11% from 3. 11%. They went to the free throw line 21 times. They made 18 of 21. If they don't go to the free throw line 21 times, they might not win this game. And now my confidence is shook.
Exactly. Like, kind of going into this game, we haven't seen anybody really test them. UVA tested them in the ACC tournament, but that's also a really good top 10 UVA team. Not Siena, who most people had to Google, which we did, and I think they are in New York. So maybe they had that.
They're in upstate New York,
yeah.
And today I learned that they are the Saints, but their mascot is a dog because it's a Saint Bernard.
That kind of makes sense when you think about it, but at first,
it only makes sense when it's explained to you.
Exactly, and that means that's not a really good mascot. But
no.
You know what? Shout out to them for taking the Blue Devils all the way to the wire. Really testing them early. You mentioned how they had their worst game. They can't do that past us. They probably were looking at this team and were like, you know what? We can kind of slack off.
No, now they play TCU. We saw TCU play a pretty good game. They have a really versatile guy that plays down low. His last name's Punch. Never heard of him until today because that's what the NCAA tournament does. You find out about players you've never seen play. I was watching him and I was like, this guy's pretty good. And then so that guy's going to take on Carlos Boozer's son now. It's going to be Caden Boozer versus Punch, and I can't wait to see what happens.
That's really nice. Well, we talked about Duke. UVA, the Who's, they play tomorrow. Mitch, what do you think they got to do to kind of prevent a little bit of take the sweat off the brow as they go into their matchup tomorrow?
Well, what happens with these tournament games is you got to start well. You can't be down 15 because the effort that it takes to get back from down 15, it will exhaust you for the rest of the game. So you might come back and you might even take the lead like Ohio State did. But the effort that it takes to get back there is what will mess you up for the rest of the game. And so UVA they got to come out and they got to take care of business. They've got the best defensive player in the country. The guy that he had 3 blocks a game in the ACC tournament. Ugonna Oyensu.
Yeah.
They've got a pretty decent scoring offense. I don't remember them necessarily shooting the lights out from 3, and that's kind of the other thing is if you're not taking care of your business defensively, then what you do offensively isn't as important because some of these teams they do shoot the lights out like UMBC did. They can make a bunch of threes, and suddenly you're down 15, and then you're in that hole of having to figure out how to come back. Duke was able to do it today because they're far superior to Siena, so they're down by 11 at half, but they were able to fix that. They still only won by 6. The effort that it takes in this tournament to come back from a deficit is so tough. So what does UVA have to do? They got to stay away from a deficit.
Exactly. Like when you're talking about staying away from a deficit, I think one thing that will definitely help them is the fact that they have an experienced roster. Earlier in the season, Ryan Odom talked about how his roster creation, he wanted to get guys who have been in the tournament. He wanted to get guys who have played in conference tournaments. And I think that's something that Duke doesn't really have because every year they're rebuilding their team. They have a couple of freshman phenoms who haven't really had the taste of March Madness and that big stage. And if you, Mitch, you've covered March Madness before, or you've been to these big stages. And
I have, yes.
And these big stages.
I covered UVA in Madison Square Garden in 2014 when they lost to Michigan State in the Sweet 16. And even though they lost, it was just amazing to be in the world's most famous arena covering the NCAA tournament, the event that made me want to get into sports broadcasting.
And I guarantee you none of those VCU players have ever played it in a stadium like Madison Square Garden, jumping like it was. And that's definitely, as a player, that's something that you have to adjust to because the noise is different, the feel is different, the vibe is different, the depth perception behind the rim.
But you know what, though? Sometimes it's better when you don't know because we had a High Point today. You were talking about our producer, Alex. He is a Northside High School grad. He is a High Point University grad. So he's watching High Point. They're down for most of the game. They can't stop making threes. I mentioned the shooting. They can't stop making threes. And suddenly they're down by one. Wisconsin has a drive, a missed layup. And then there's a guy down the other end that has no points on the day, none, and he's just cherry picking. And the ball goes down. He makes a layup. They get a stop on the other end. Suddenly, the 12 seed beats the 5 seed. Wisconsin is out. High Point's moving on. And so sometimes, hey, you're a veteran team, you're experienced. Sometimes when you have no idea what to expect and you're just standing around the opponent's foul line and you happen to end up with the ball in your hands, sometimes it's better that way.
Yeah, and their head coach, he talked about this win. It's a very high-quality win because Wisconsin has beaten, I think, more than 5 top 10 teams. And he said, you know what that means for us? That means we can beat anybody in this tournament. And, when these Cinderella runs start, the big thing is that you can see that confidence exuding from themselves, going out there and knowing they belong because you get the George Masons of the past. They have never faced a team like Wisconsin, never faced a team that has 3 7-footers on their team. But they have that confidence to say, you know what? Today's a new day. I can come out here, I can shoot the lights out, and then that's when you get these upsets. But let's go ahead and we got a soundbite from who's head coach Ryan Odom on kind of what it would take for them to get into this tournament, kind of talking about after the ACC tournament, what the lessons they learned after playing such a high competitive game against Duke. Oops. There we go. Well, we're having some technical difficulties here, so that's we're having some technical difficulties here, so we're gonna try to work around that.
Well, let's just keep talking.
Exactly.
I'll keep talking. How about that? Another game today I was surprised by. If you haven't seen Nebraska play basketball, they're not just a football school. In fact, they haven't been a football school for a long time. So watching them play basketball this way, it was really impressive. They made a million threes. They beat Troy 76-47 in what was easily the biggest blowout of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a 4 versus a 13 matchup. So you're expecting Duke to go out there and blow out Siena. Well, that didn't happen. But you know what? Nebraska went out there, knocked down a million threes, and took care of business. And now they are going to end up playing Vanderbilt, who had a lot of trouble with McNeese State. That was another 12-5 matchup. And I've got Vanderbilt advancing to the Elite Eight because I think they're going to beat Florida because they just beat them in the SEC tournament. And so they have to play Nebraska, and I honestly am thinking Nebraska's got the upper hand here. And that's Fred Hoiberg. He was the head coach at Iowa State for a long time, got them to the level that they're at right now, left to take the Chicago Bulls head coaching job, and then now he's in another Midwestern town. He's in the Big 10 instead of the Big 12, but it used to be a Big 12 school, and before that a Big 8 school, and he's having a lot of success, and his teams are knocking down threes. So that's a guy that has a lot of NCAA experience and a lot of NCAA success. And now he's back, and he's got a great program. And they won their first 20 games of the season, had a little bit of a lull later in the season. And now they're hitting their stride at the right time as they come into the NCAA tournament. We'll see if they can take on Vandy. Another game, I had USF, South Florida. I thought they were going to beat Louisville.
I did too.
I didn't think Louisville deserved to be a 6 seed. And Louisville came out and was up 21 at one point, and the game ended up being a 4-point game. Louisville wins 83-79, but I really expected USF to play better, and that was another situation like what I'm talking about. You're down 21. They came back, and they got within 4 or 5 points, but then by then all their effort is just expended. They've got no more energy left.
Yeah, and one of the things that when I think about these different teams that can make a run is yes, there are teams that can shoot the lights out, but former Kentucky head coach and current Arkansas Razorback coach Cal has talked numerous times because he's made many runs deep in the playoffs. He said there are two things that these teams really need. One, you need depth to be able to. This is a long process. People don't understand how mentally draining this tournament can be. It's day in, day out. It's one and you're done. So you need to have experience, some depth. Obviously, he won a national championship when he had generational freshmen like Anthony Davis.
Well, he has another one.
And he has another.
Darius Acuff.
Exactly, and he's one of only three.
And they won by 19 today. They beat Hawaii, which, by the way, when Dave Walls did the pick your bracket based on color, I ended up picking Hawaii to win the national championship because I picked the color green. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not
Sorry,
going to happen.
everybody.
You know, when you have a historic player like that, that's really tough to do. But when you have these teams that can play defense as well, because even though you can shoot the lights out, there's going to be days where your shooters aren't hot. But you need to have those defenders that can step up every single day and be able to make sure, you know what, if we're not hot, I got to make sure this team can't score more than 60. And that's another thing that Coach Cal said. Your team has to be able to score 80. If your team, most teams, if you can score 80, it was like most of the time you're either in the game or you're going to win the game. So if you can score 80, that's something that you can do. But now we got this thing working. Let's see what Ryan Odom says that their team needs to do in order to make a successful run in this tournament.
I think, like I said after the Duke game, the first one. I mean, I've been beaten. Some of my teams have been beaten like that, and you can't read too much into it. They're a great team. But I didn't come out of that game thinking, all right, they're however many points better than us. They were that night. They certainly were that night. And, we went back and looked at the tape and we said, here, we had shots here, we had shots here. These are shots we typically make. These are ones that we were good with. All right, defensively, the game plan was good. Oh, we were a little bit undisciplined right here. We got to switch that back and make sure that the guys are aware of this. Certainly the moment was very big. Going into Cameron Indoor the first time is not an easy thing. You have to kind of go through it the first time to get a feel for it. And there's a reason they're number one in the country. And so it gave us a taste of what we were going to have to compete against at the highest level. But by no means did it scare us. These guys should take tremendous confidence going into the NCAA tournament that they're, a team to take notice of. Now that doesn't guarantee us anything. You have to play well on the day that the ball gets tipped up, and you can't have an off night, anymore. Maybe you escape, but you can't have an off night where it just doesn't work. You gotta be ready, and I'm looking forward to seeing our team, get out there.
Yeah, so that's Ryan Odom on kind of what his team needs to do. We're going to be right back after this break. Mitch is going to have to head on out, but thank you so much for joining us, Mitch. We really do appreciate that, but we'll be right back after this break. Owen Jackson has been named the Class 1 Boys Player of the Year. The 6'5" guard averaged 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 33 points per game. And none were bigger than that three-point shot that you just saw to send the game into overtime. On the girls' side, Galax Maroon Tide head coach Patrick Puckett was named Class 1 Girls Coach of the Year. And Riley Hawks is your Player of the Year as well for Class 1 Girls. Both helped lead the Tide to their first state championship in school history. Congratulations, all of you guys, on your accomplishments and successful seasons. Just being at that game, just watching these performances. First off, I want to talk about the Galax girls team. Just from the start, they were shooting lights out. I think they hit 7 threes to start the game, and it wasn't close. The whole game, it was just the Tide were just rolling. Not Roll Tide, but this is the Maroon Tide. But they were rolling the whole night, and it was just amazing to see them able to kind of climb the mountain and make history. This is the first state championship in the girls history, and we'll have Puckett and Hawks on the show tomorrow. So you guys want to tune in for that coming in. But kind of going to Owen, that record-setting performance, 53 points in a state championship game. He breaks the record of, well, you guys know him pretty well. He is the slam dunk champion 3 times over Mac McClung. He broke his record. I think Mac McClung had 43 in 2019. So he broke that record, and he scored all of his team's points in overtime. Obviously, he hit that 3-point shot to send it into overtime. It was just amazing to watch that performance going for just in person. And he's only a sophomore. We have 2 more years of this. So he's 6'5". He's going to get taller. He's going to get more athletic. He's going to get just more well-rounded in the game of basketball. So he's not going anywhere. He averaged 33 points as a sophomore. So he's a name that you're going to need to keep an eye on. But we're going to switch gears back to football, because today Virginia Tech had their second spring ball practice. This was the first time that we were, as the media, were able to get in and scope out the scene, kind of see who is doing what. Because the question is, how is James Franklin's first team at Virginia Tech going to look like? So I put together a little bit of a compilation of James Franklin, to some of the things that he wanted to figure out, from quarterbacks to offensive line to running backs. All of them were in place, and all of them were doing really well. And I think that this year's team, it was a lot of energy going into this game, today's practice, and it was just overall just an amazing practice. You can see the energy, especially from Brent Pry as well. The defense was running around. They were screaming, running around, making plays. The DBs were breaking onto balls. It was just overall, it was an amazing performance just watching them practice. So let's take a look at what James Franklin had to say, and you guys can take a look at some of these clips as well.
We've made sure that the players all know that everything was being evaluated. So the strength staff was having an evaluation, the winter workouts. That's why we tracked all of the competitions. That was a factor in the meetings that we're allowed to have. All those types of things. How are they retaining information? How are they answering questions? All that stuff has been part of the evaluation process. But we got to find a way to get them reps, because there's guys that are unbelievable in the meeting room, and then they can't do it out of the field. So although we'll have kind of a starting point, it is fluid, and it's also why we are going to do as much 2-spot teaching and 2-spot drills as we possibly can. The other thing is it just makes us more efficient. So for example, say you go the 1s for 5 reps, the 2s for 5 reps, and the 3s for 5 reps. If we can go 2 fields and the 3s and 4s are going at the same time as the 1s and the 2s, and we're videoing all of that, it gives us the best ability to be efficient on the field, get off the field as quickly as we possibly can, and get all the guys reps. But it's literally to start going to be a straight rotation between those 5 guys, and we'll start to kind of figure out where we're at sooner rather than later. Yeah, because of injuries, we're a little thin there. I think you guys kind of gotten some of those notes. Thinner than we would like to be. So we'll see how that plays out. Bill has been kind of an exciting one. I think you guys saw when he first got here, he was a cheeseburger away from 250 pounds. He has changed his body dramatically and is moving well. But it's still to be determined. I think Marcellus is a really good example, right? Our running backs coach hasn't had a chance to see him or evaluate him yet. So, he's a big part of all of this. So, we'll see. We'll see how this thing goes and kind of where we're at. But, I wish we were a little bit healthier at that position, especially when you say the guy who was the returning starter's out. I think the challenge on the offensive line, I think it's a challenge, but also I think it's a blessing sometimes, is I think when you're really good, it's not a left tackle and a backup left tackle, a left guard and a backup left guard. It's typically, okay, here are the starters, and then here's the next best available player inside. Here's the next best available at tackle. And then there's going to be some guys that we're going to try to recruit as many of these guys as we can that are swing guys. They're guards with enough length that can play tackle and athleticism to play tackle, or some tackles that got enough girth and size that can move inside. So now it's not who's your backup left tackle, it's who's your next best available player that we can get on the field. There's going to be some swing guys, but I also think there's going to be probably next best tackle on the perimeter, next best interior guy, and we'll figure that out. I mean, you'd love to be in a position where you feel like there's not a significant drop-off and you can just go a traditional two deep, but I think more times than not, it's who's the 6th, 7th, 8th best offensive lineman. And by doing it that way, you need position flexibility. And it may be, okay, your right guard helmet breaks and he needs to come off the field. The best way to do it now is your starting right tackle moves to right guard, and the next best player to get on the field is a tackle. So it's to be determined, but that's how I see this typically playing.
From so far, this practice there was a lot of information to digest. What people want to know going in is who's going to be the signal caller going into year one under the James Franklin era. And he did say in that press conference, it's very fluid. There is no number one. But if I was a betting man, I'm going to bet on number 17, Ethan Grunkmeyer, who transferred in from Penn State. There are 5 quarterbacks on this roster right now. He is the only one of this roster that has any game time experience in college. All the other quarterbacks are freshmen or redshirt freshmen who didn't see the field last year. And he played, I think, 6 games last year, had over 1,300 yards passing, threw for 9 touchdowns. So he has experience in the Penn State offense. He has experience playing on one of the biggest stages at Beaver Stadium, and just him having that experience will definitely be something to look forward to. But like I said, any of these other quarterbacks could come in and have an amazing performance and take the job from him. So it is fluid, but if I was a betting man, I would bet on the guy who actually has game experience. So that is just going to be a lot of things that we learn as we go. This is only the second practice. There's 15 that are going to be happening from now until the spring game in April. And we're going to learn more and more. We're going to see more film on all these players, on all these running backs, all these quarterbacks, all offensive linemen, defensive linemen. And that's what the spring is about. It's about learning who are your guys going to be, because that's the thing that is a question mark for this team. They only have one returning player who was an all-ACC selection last year, and that was Kamani Copeland, the defensive lineman, the physical freak on D-line. He kind of picked up where he left off last year. He was wrecking in one-on-ones. He was in team. You could tell this is an NFL caliber player. He decided not to enter the draft last year to come back and play for Coach Franklin. So this year, he had a breakout year last year. We're going to hope that he can take that next step this coming season. and that will help the Hokies in this first year under James Franklin. They're going to be playing VMI to start the season, and we're going to see what this team looks like. But as we go on, you guys can stay up to date online and on air on WDBJ7 and the WDBJ7 Plus here at the Sports Huddle, and we're going to have more for you. But today, that's going to call it a wrap for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure. Enjoy March Madness. Sit down, relax, kick up your feet, turn on the multi-view camera. I know that's what I'm going to be doing here for the rest of the night until you guys come back tonight. It won't be at 11. It'll be after March Madness ends, but join us tonight on WDBJ7. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it, and y'all guys have a good one.